Hi everyone, my name is Kendra and I am a new member of the Cyber Seniors ACE committee. This month we're going to be talking about feminism, the past, present, and future. This is a quote by G.D. Anderson. Feminism isn't about making women stronger. Women are already strong. It's about changing the way the world perceives their strength. Next is uh, about sexism. Maybe some of you know this word. So sexism is perceiving and judging people based on their sex or gender. It takes on different roles, and sometimes it's not easy to recognize it. Well, first is traditional sexism. It supports traditional gender roles, employing traditional stereotypes which portray women as less competent than men. Modern sexism is denying gender discrimination. For example, like saying it's not a problem anymore, and having negative attitudes towards women's rights, denying the validity of claims made by women. And neo-sexism are ideologies that justify discrimination towards women. They tend to ignore or deny difficulties faced by women and think and justify them as men being more competent than women. Women's History Month. It's National Women's History Month traces its roots to March 8, 1857, when women from various New York City factories staged a protest over poor working conditions. The first Women's Day celebration in the United States was in 1909, also in New York City. More than 7 decades later, U.S. Congress in 1981 established National Women's History Week to be commemorated annually in the second week of March. It has been since extended to a month and is celebrated and honored around the world. The theme of this year's Women's History Month is providing, healing, promoting hope, and is a tribute to caregivers and frontline workers. Let's talk about feminism in the past. So there are multiple waves, and this is the first one. Officially started in 1848 at the Seneca Falls Convention, 300 people came together to fight for equality for women. It focused on creating more opportunities for women, helping women obtain rights. Dominated by white, middle-class, straight, cisgender women, and did not really take women of color into account. The second wave began when people began protesting the Miss America pageant in 1968 and 1969. Women were being reduced to objects and were often kept in low-paying jobs. Main focuses: anti-war, increasing people's consciousness of many minority groups, sexuality, reproductive rights. One of the biggest priorities of this wave was to pass the Equal Rights Amendment, which would guarantee social equality regardless of gender. The second wave began to bring in more diversity compared to the first wave. The third wave focuses on constructs such as body, gender, sexuality, and heteronormativity. They wanted to define beauty for themselves and eliminate the objectification of patriarchy. Overall, the goal was to change people's perceptions of gender. During this wave, diversity started to become celebrated and its importance was recognized. Finally, the fourth wave. It focuses on sexual harassment, body shaming, and rape culture. One of the main aspects of this movement that separates it from the others is social media. It has been used to quickly spread information and organize large protests that span across many different areas. Through social media, the Me Too movement became prevalent and a major part of the fourth wave of feminism. It It began in 2006 to help survivors of sexual assault with a focus on women of color, later becoming well known in 2017 thanks to the hashtag #MeToo. Past and present leaders. In the first wave of feminism, the suffragettes fought for women's rights, specifically for the right to vote. The groups included Mary Wollstonecraft, Susan B. Anthony, Alice Stone Blackwell, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Emmeline Pankhurst, and Sojourner Truth. Their movement and protests led to women gaining the right to vote in the US in 1920, but many Black and Indigenous women were still denied this right. These are um, feminist leaders. So this first one is Betty Friedan, an American writer and activist, is often credited for sparking the second wave of feminism. She spent her life working to establish women's equality by establishing the National Women's Political Caucus, a grassroots organization dedicated to increasing women's participation in the political process, and organizing the Women's Strike for Equality in 1970, which brought attention to the feminist movement. Um, and Angela Davis, a trailblazing voice for Black women. Angela Davis is an author, political activist, and a key leader in the civil rights movement. She has fought for the progress of women's rights for over 6 decades and still continues to fight for social justice. Maya Angelou, uh, voice and writing, poet and civil rights activist Maya Angelou has inspired both women and Black people to overcome gender discrimination and racism. Her unique writing style has encouraged many writers to create more work with deep meaning that challenges society. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She is known for her TED Talk, We Should All Be Feminists. She is a prominent author and voice in modern feminism. She advocates for women's rights and represents African culture and promotes diversity within feminism. Winona LaDuke. She is a leading Indigenous activist for climate change. She has spent her life advocating for the inclusion of Indigenous communities, especially Indigenous women, when it comes to the fight for climate change. In addition to her activism, she is the founder of many organizations, such as the Indigenous Women's Network and the White Earth Land Recovery Project, and co-founder of Honor and Earth with the Indigo Girls. Laverne Cox. She has been an important advocate to the LGBTQ rights and a shining beacon of transgender representation in Hollywood. She made history in 2014 for being the first openly transgender person to be nominated for an Emmy for her role in Orange is the New Black. Since then, she continues to bring awareness to issues affecting the LGBTQ community. And Trina Burke. She's often credited for beginning the fourth wave of feminism. She started the #MeToo movement back in 2006, more than a decade before it was popularized. Burke has become an inspiring leader for victims of sexual assault and harassment. Many women all over the world have been using the #MeToo to speak up about their own sexual assault experiences, which has been helped to create other feminist movements, such as Hollywood's Time's Up. She has not only created a safe place for people to speak out about sexual misconduct, but has paved the future of feminism. And we now go to the present. Where do we stand today? Today, there are great dialogues surrounding diversity and inclusion in greater society within this movement. The main themes are social justice, racial justice, gender equality, and economic equity. The first is wage gap. Women were finally being recognized more for work outside. Uh, there are still many stereotypes about working women. For example, the wage gap. It's still a major issue that women are facing in the workplace. In the 2018, in Canada, women made 87 cents for every dollar a man made. And in the US, women earn 84% of what men made working the same hours. This means that women must work an extra 42 days to make the same salary. While it has gotten smaller over time, there is still inequality in the wage gap. It's significantly larger for BIPOC women, disabled women, immigrant women, and other marginalized groups. In addition to this, women are often expected to work a double shift, being the primary caretaker of children in addition to working full time. Countless fields, such as STEM, are male dominated and lack gender representation. Many countries and companies do not offer adequate childcare or maternity leave support, which can put a bigger burden on other working mothers. What are issues women are facing today? People are, number one is people are being denied access to safe abortions. For example, the heartbeat bill was passed in Texas, which prohibits abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy, even though many people aren't aware that they are pregnant by 6 weeks. With no legal options, many people will turn to unsafe termination options, putting them in dangerous situations. Domestic and sexual abuse, violence, and harassment. 1 in 5 people in college experienced sexual assault. In 2014, it was found that more women were killed by their intimate partner since September 11th than all the Americans who were killed by 9/11 or in Afghanistan and Iraq. Period poverty and the stigma surrounding this topic. Around the world, approximately 500 million people lack the access to menstrual facilities and products. Uh, okay, now let's debunk stereotypes. Modern feminism is plagued by a lot of stereotypes and misconceptions. Some of you might hear these, such as maybe feminists hate men. Feminists want to take power away from men. Feminists dress masculine, don't shave or shower, are loud, obnoxious, and opinionated. All feminists are women, and feminists are only concerned about gender equality. These stereotypes about any group can be harmful and can keep people from educating themselves further about feminist causes. And lastly, we'll talk about the future and where feminism is going to head next. Throughout history, feminism has been seen from a white, wealthy, Eurocentric perspective. Consequently, the movement is seeking to understand race, gender, cultural, social, and financial differences and their impact on feminism. Goals to expand to include women in all communities. The greatest priority would be to uplift and impact those with the least amount of social privilege. Intersectionality gives us the tools to invoke greater systematic structural change. The feminist movement is starting to intersect more with other important issues and movements. Examples: police brutality, LGBTQ rights, disability rights, climate change, and more. What is Intersectionality. Intersectionality is a lens through which you can see where power comes and collides, where it locks and intersects. It is the acknowledgement that everyone has their own unique experiences of discrimination and privilege, as you can see from the diagram here. Mm. The movement would evolve to understand that every issue that impacts women is a feminist issue, by Mickey Kendall, while recognizing that power is built as a collective and shared among society. Future movements will aim to create pathway and the opportunity for all people to realize and strive to reach their full potential. Our movement is expansive and abundant. It is multiracial, multilingual, and multigenerational. And rather than creating a hierarchy of issues that further our cause, we challenge the way all hierarchies of power create harm, including gender, race, and immigration. Machado and Turner. In order for feminist movement to become more diverse and inclusive, white feminists must actively strive to overcome white privilege and supremacy within the movement and beyond. Future challenges. With societal progression comes challenges and obstacles to overcome. In the future, leaders in the movement have predicted the following challenges. Number one is the funding of the movement. Majority of funding comes from white, wealthy, majority organizations. When white women stop trusting white men more than women of color, or even ourselves, feminism will be unstoppable. Second is contrasting perspectives. And third is working to embrace those who push gender stereotypes and whose genders are non-binary. Non-binary are people who identify as neither female nor male. Technology and social media. Though the internet and social media services have made information and community more accessible than ever, it also provides a large platform for misinformation and hate speech. The rise of right-wing extremism, and men's rights public figures. Tens of thousands of men visit message boards which promote online male and misogynist radicalization. Male misogynist online activity has also been linked to a number of terrorist attacks since 2011. Where we look to each other for the value we can add rather than the power we can take, only then can we build a society where we value every person, their lives, and their contribution with dignity and respect. It's the end of zero sum politics and it's the future of feminism. Machado and Turner.
Here we have some links for further learning, and we will be sending out a copy of the presentation to everyone here afterwards so that you can look into these more. The first one is a website called feminist.com, which is a site to learn about current initiatives, events, and activism that creates a supportive and inclusive community for feminism. The second we featured is the Gender and Equality Network, a site with resources and ways to get involved with the movement with a focus on intersectionality. Another website that isn't listed but that I would recommend is called Everyday Feminism. It has lots of handy articles you can read on lots of different topics. And then we have some interviews, firsthand accounts of women at the forefront of the women's movement, and a few videos, including the Remember the Ladies TED Talk, How History Erases Women TED Talk, What is Feminism, White Feminism, sorry, and then Kimberly Crenshaw, an interview with Kimberly Crenshaw, who coined the term intersectionality. And of course, these are just a few resources. There are so many others as well. And I encourage all of you to share if you know of further resources or videos or books that you would like to recommend to the rest of us.
Thank you for listening.